Hey, what's going on, everybody? How you guys doing? Welcome back to Podio Commentary. My name is Matt Jarbo, and I just watched Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li Unleashed and Unrated. And why? Well, for one, my why is not just why did I watch this movie? It is really, why did so many things happen in this movie? This is one that I bought the other day when I went to the Dollar Tree, and I happened to find Exit Wounds and Cradle to the Grave, which are both done by director Andrzej Bartkowiak. And then I was like, wait, this guy also did Chun-Li, right? Street Fighter: Legend of Chun-Li, and I've never seen it. So I'm like, I'm buying these other movies. I might as well buy this one too, if Half Price Books has it. And lo and behold, they did for $2. So I figured it's a worthy price. I'm like, I've never seen the movie. I've heard nothing but terrible things about it. It can't be as bad as everyone is making it out to be, right? 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 Ooh, it is a rough one, ladies and gentlemen. And I am, look, I will reiterate this point very often in all of my reviews, okay? I am, for lack of a better term, a very easy lay. I'm a very easily entertained individual. It does not take much to blow my skirt up, if you get the analogy. This movie tested every ounce of that. And and it wasn't like I disliked the movie. It wasn't like that. There was elements of it that I liked. Far more about it, I had questions, really, considering the pedigree of people who worked on this movie. Okay, like, first and foremost, this is not a Street Fighter movie. I mean, I know it's labeled as such. It has characters from Street Fighter in it. They were trying to kind of capture, like, the gritty, grounded, adaptation side of things back in 2008 when they shot this movie during, like, the writer's strike is when it was in pre-production, which means that, like, no work was being done on the screenplay. And that actually shows. So if you're wondering why this movie is as poorly written as it is, that's the reason why. It's because during the writer's strike, these guys were, like, unable to work on the script at all while they were setting up to film the movie in multiple different countries all over the world. So we now know what happened. And it just goes to show you Hollywood has this weird tendency of greenlighting projects before they're ready to go. And this is something that is not recent. We've seen this in recent movies, obviously, but this is something that has been going on for quite some time. And in, like, the late 2000s, especially at 20th Century Fox, Tom Rothman was running the show. He now runs Sony, but he is making better choices these days. But I do want to quickly touch upon the director and the writer, because I feel like I have to. All right. So, like, you will hear me praise the movie Exit Wounds. You will probably hear me praise the movie Cradle to the Grave. This director also did the 2006 Doom, of which nobody likes, I feel like, except for me. So I will praise that one as well. But Exit Wounds and Cradle to the Grave, and also Romeo Must Die, which was his first feature film, those were all produced by Joel Silver. So if you're wondering why those are better movies on, like, a fundamental basis, that is why. They were produced by Joel Silver. This movie was not. Okay, but the guy who wrote it, Justin Marks, he's not just some, like, nobody screenwriter, okay? Like, this guy wrote, he was one of the writers of Top Gun Maverick, which was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay a couple years ago. He was the showrunner of Shogun, which is one of the more highly acclaimed shows on Hulu. And so it's not like this guy has not been around working on stuff. He did write the 2016 Jungle Book movie, which I thought was pretty good. But his first screenwriting credit was Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li. And I think there's a reason why he didn't really do any feature films from 2008 to 2016, maybe, right? I don't know. I don't want to poo-poo on this guy, but that's kind of the whole point. I just kind of feel like that should be talked about. Obviously, this guy got better in his writing, but I also want to say that, like, Hollywood, because they were in the stranglehold of the writer's strike, definitely had trouble getting this thing done. And so this movie stars Kristin Kreuk, coming off of Smallville as Lois Lane or Lana Lang. Sorry, I always get those names confused. And then moving into wanting to do movies. Obviously, she had her Eurotrip cameo, and a lot of people were like really excited about that. I love Eurotrip. So this one is kind of her first foray into leading lady action movies. And she deserved so much better. The material, she deserved so much better. I mean, she tried, you can tell, but there's only so much you can really do, especially when you're taking on this kind of like, you know, this, I don't want to say grounded. It is more grounded though, compared to the 1994 Street Fighter film, which is like The Godfather in comparison to this one. But I also say that as a wildly biased individual who undeniably loves the 1994 movie with all of my heart. So you'll never hear me say a bad thing about it. I just want to let you guys know. But in this movie, again, this is like a spin-off / origin movie. And there's really not a lot of information about like how the project came together, but I feel like I want to go and learn all of that information at some point in time. Like I want to go do a documentary about how and why this movie ended up being the way that it did. Because I have so many questions. Obviously this is from the kind of let's try it era of like the late 2000s. Where Hollywood was making so much money from home video sales that they had the money to blow on something like this. And they spent $50 million on the budget for this movie, not including anything with marketing. And the movie itself was like number 9 on its opening weekend. We're talking $1.5 million, and it barely did anything on home video when it was released a mere few months later, right? This movie is as big of a flop as one could even like calculate for Hollywood. And I know I'm kind of like front loading this with like talking a ton of trash about it. It's really interesting when you start to look at it, maybe not through the video game adaptation lens, but for the vibe I think the movie was really kind of going for. Now, I did have low expectations going in. I was kind of hoping that it was going to, you know, again, kind of live up to like the dumb, fun cult film idea that maybe I had built up for this movie in my head. It did not. And even though it had people like, you know, Neal McDonough, who is a great actor, Michael Clark Duncan before he passed away, you know, you had Chris Klein, Moon Bloodgood, you know, even like the guy who played freaking Kung Lao, you know, in Mortal Kombat, right? Robin Shou, I think that's his name. You know, like he's in this movie as Gen. And I'm like, okay, right? Who is this character? Why should I care? Because they tried setting up, okay, you guys got to understand, this movie tried to make Street Fighter like a much bigger world than it really is. You know, rather than treating it like either a Mortal Kombat or Bloodsport Kumite type tournament, this was about like, you know, shady businessmen, you know, played by Bison, right? Or overseen by Bison, who, and I'm just going to get this out of the way. In order for him to become as powerful as he was, his origin story is that he took his new wife and she was pregnant, and he transferred like all of his like negative or all of his goodness, any ounce of good that was in him to the soul, the spirit of his daughter, unborn daughter, with whom he actually tore open the womb and extracted the child, therefore killing the mother. That's in the movie. I don't know if that's lore. I don't know. I don't want to know, to be honest with you. And I'm a lore guy. I love lore. And I'm looking at this going like, wait, what? Like, bro, your wife was hot, dude. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, it was like, holy crap. That caught me completely by surprise, that whole scene. And again, even the movie itself had this, like, I want to go back to the vibe. I got to talk about the vibe. So it's okay. It's like, it's a rough movie and the movie's out of sync. I just kind of want to get that out of the way, but I think that was intentional. So the way I feel about this movie is like, it feels like a Hong Kong action flick from like the 80s that ended up getting badly dubbed and then brought over to the States. I mean that literally. Like, I'm watching this movie and it's out of sync. And so I'm wondering, like, is it my headphones? So I turn off my headphones and then I play the volume on the TV. No, it's still out of sync. So I had to then, I switched the 4K to a different HDMI port on my TV to make sure that the DVD I was watching was like, maybe it was in a bad port. I don't know. Still out of sync. And then I go and I look up some reviews on the movie and I see, oh, right, they still have the audio, lots of terrible ADR, lots of over the shoulder shots where the person who's over the shoulder is the one doing more of the talking. Like there's really like a lot of bad cinematography here. Like it just, for the director, and you got to understand, like this guy, he's directed other movies, but he was also like the cinematographer for like a ton of movies. Okay. He was a cinematographer for like Terms of Endearment back in '83. We're talking like, he did Twins for Ivan Reitman. He did, Falling Down for Joel Schumacher. He did Speed for Jan de Bont. He did Species, Jade, Dante's Peak, The Devil's Advocate, U.S. Marshals, Lethal Weapon 4. Like this guy has been around for a while, and it was that Lethal Weapon 4 connection to Joel Silver, which is what got him the job of doing Romeo Must Die, Exit Wounds, and Cradle to the Grave, right? Doing all the DP work is what got him that first director's gig. And by the time he got here, it was almost like none of his experience had even like remotely come through. And the cinematographer on this movie is a gentleman named Jeff Boyle, who sadly passed away about 5 years ago, but he was like, he had been around for a minute as well. He had done some stuff like, he was the cinematographer on Mutant Chronicles, which was a Thomas Jane straight-to-video film in 2008. I've seen that movie. It's an interesting film. I need to watch it again. But that was really about like that was the first, I think, feature film he did as cinematographer. And then he went on to go do Legend of Chun-Li. This guy was mostly camera department, right? He was mostly like, oh no, well, I don't want to undermine his career, but this guy didn't have a lot of experience. And I think he was a friend, and I think he was cheap. And I think that's a lot of what happened. And again, I apologize to his family. I'm not trying to besmirch him, but there was some questionable stuff here. Like there were scenes that were completely out of focus. The way that the lighting seemed somewhat inconsistent. The fight choreography, which he would have had a hand in, was definitely like not great. There was a lot of wire work that wasn't very good as well. I mean, like there was stuff in this movie that just like made very little sense. And then it was edited together very slapdash is a great way to kind of describe it. And so like you're watching this movie and don't get me wrong, like I'm entertained while I'm watching it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I am very curious about the decisions that went into making some of these scenes, to doing some of this stuff, especially when it came to the sound, because I'm very audio focused. That's why this particular review is called, Podio Commentary, because it's just me talking and kind of getting my thoughts and my feelings out there. So anyway, so like the story of this movie is bonkers as well, right? So Chun-Li's dad is this businessman who's got shady dealings, kind of. We don't really learn much about it. He moves the family around a lot. They end up going to Hong Kong. That's where she goes from being like a concert pianist protege to being like a wushu fighter, like alongside her dad. And they do that for a long time until, like a couple years, until her dad is captured by Balrog, played by Michael Clark Duncan. And I was like, I didn't know he was even in the movie. And I'm all like, it's a big black guy who fights. It's got to be Balrog. Absolutely Balrog. And then we meet Neal McDonough as Bison, and like half of I swear to God, he uses like an Irish accent in certain words in this movie. It sounds like he is like, the ADR was like, we need to just get him in and get him out quickly because we don't have the money. And so they're just like, say whatever you want. And he was almost doing an Irish accent in this at times. You'll hear it on the back ends of words, right? You'll hear it on a little bit here, a little bit there, like 3-4 times throughout the movie. I'm hearing him and I'm just going like, yo, is he speaking with an Irish accent? Right? Like, okay. I mean, nothing about this guy looks like M. Bison. They don't even call him M. Bison. They just call him Bison. Like, that's it. He doesn't ever wear the outfit. He doesn't ever put on the hat. He doesn't ever do any of that stuff. Like, he's just a guy named Bison, like in name only. Like, Raul Julia, again, not really the most Bison-esque in the physique particular department, but he had the gravitas. He had, the chops to really kind of get that job done, even though it was like his last job. Unfortunately, he still like knocked it out of the park. This was totally different. And I love Neal McDonough. He was great in Band of Brothers, Ravenous. I mean, I think he was on Justified. I've always been a big fan of this guy whenever he's popped up in something. And this was, I think, one of his worst performances. And it was also one of the most like least active performances, because like he just stood around and like he not even chewed the scenery. He just like stood around, had a couple of things here, a couple of things there. And then he fought Chun-Li at the end of the movie. And that was like, oh no, he fought Gen right before then. So at the end of the movie, he had the most to do, and then Gen even takes out Balrog by literally like steam piping him to death. And the visual effects on that were literally a ripple effect of Michael Clark Duncan dying. Like, this is stuff that was done like, like After Effects in the late 2000s. Like, it was so bad, the visual effects on this movie. The color palette was not very good either. It was just shot so kind of yellow and everything. It was like it's so dingy. Everything about it felt dingy, which is one of the reasons why when I was watching this, I'm like, this has got to be like an homage to like 80s and like maybe early 90s, like Chinese Hong Kong cinema sort of thing, where it's just like it's meant to kind of convey something, and then that's really about it, but they're using branded IP to do it. And and I know the 1994 film is largely hated by a lot of people. I was a kid. I was 12 in 1994. So like that movie was everything to me, and as a 44-year-old, I still love it. So I'm willing to give things the benefit of the doubt. Give me a decent story. Well, the story here is really just about it's supposedly about revenge. Okay. So like Chun-Li, her dad gets taken. She sees her dad get taken. She still becomes a concert pianist. She's apparently gone and studied at Juilliard, and she's gone back to Hong Kong, and she's done all that. So she's kind of established in this particular concert pianist world, and she gets this mysterious scroll sent to her house, or sent to her, after a show. And then like her mom has cancer and her mom dies. And then she finally reads it. She's like, well, I can't read it, so I'm going to take it to some lady to go and like get her to decipher it. She's in Hong Kong, keep in mind. Okay. And then the lady goes, you need to go and find Gen, and like the Order of the Web in Bangkok. Okay. Well, how will I find him? No. He'll find you when the time is right. So she's like, okay. And she leaves everything behind. There's a whole scene where she's like saying goodbye to like all the, servants, staff in the house, like, and her grandpa and everything. And then she goes to leave. And then later on, we see like when Chris Nash, by the way, played by Chris Klein, or Charlie Nash, sorry, played by Chris Klein, is like researching her. And there's like a missing article, right? Like, she's gone missing. Like, she didn't go missing. She straight up left. Like, everyone knows she left. There's a whole scene about her leaving, right? Like what is going on here? And anyway, so she finds, Gen, and Gen teaches her the way of the Order of the Web, how to take out Bison and whatnot. And then what I was laughing was like, he starts doing this, like, almost like this fireball. It's not a fireball, right? But it's almost like a fireball, and he's teaching her how to do the fireball thing. And I'm just going like, yo, this motherfucker was just in like Mortal Kombat, like 14 years ago. I'm like, what the hell? He's playing another character who can do a fireball. This is obviously very derivative, It was just like, and again, the acting, because of the ADR, the acting was made worse by the ADR being as bad as it was. Right. And that's what I'm trying to think. I can't help but think it was deliberate, like Wimp Lo and Kung Pao Enter the Fist. Like, oh, we trained him wrong on purpose sort of thing. Like, I just feel like they knew that this was going to be a stinker. So they just went like, okay, let's make this thing like look bad, sound bad, and like the visual effects were bad. At one point, like they blow up a building with a rocket launcher, and the visual effects, I swear to God, is just like a template explosion you could find on some website back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a VFX graphic of an explosion, slightly cropped, tilted to one side, and that was it. You know, and like even the end of the movie when Chun-Li is fighting Bison and she uses the same kind of spirit move and whatever, the visual effects on that are so bad. Like, just, I mean, like, so bad. And at that point, you're going like, is this meant to be funny? Is this done on purpose? Is this a parody? Because nothing in the movie is played up as a joke, right? Maybe Charlie Nash and Maya, whatever her name is, right? Moon Bloodgood and Chris Klein have this whole, he's Interpol, she's gang related homicide, and they have this relationship that I guess they like to have sex or whatever, which is fine, you know, kind of. And then at the end of the movie, it's like they're not together, and you know, I don't even know, man. I don't even know. It's like they flirt, you know what I mean? And it's just so weird. It's just like Chris Klein is a fine actor when given the right material. Like, I think what it was is he was coming off of American Reunion around that point, and he hadn't really done much in a while. I think because, you know, he did a bunch of the teen comedy stuff, right? There's the American Pie movies, there's Election, you know, there's Say It Isn't So, which I think is a completely underrated and hilarious movie. And then he goes and he disappears for a minute, and then he comes back and he's doing this and he's playing this character, right? Well, like in some lore of Street Fighter, Charlie Nash was best friends with Guile and then gets killed and gets revived as Blanca. I guess maybe they were bringing him in so they could potentially have him become Blanca down the road, because the movie itself, by the way, ends with a setup with the tease of the actual Street Fighter, which is, you know, listed in like some newspaper ad in Japan, and they want to go find Ryu, right? And I'm just going like, okay, fine, yeah, you want to go find Ryu, but E Honda's right there. Like, you know, I know you want to start with Ryu. Okay, I get that. All right. Okay, and Ken's going to probably be there too, and maybe Guile and Cammy and whatever. Okay, you know, and I was laughing at that one because I'm just like, and then she turns him down. I just have to point that out. She turns him down for going to Japan to go and find Ryu. You know, he's basically, Gen is like, I'm setting up the Avengers Initiative, you know, 3 years before we heard those, right after we heard that for the first time, actually, because it was 2008 is when this came out. Sorry, 2009. So we'd already gotten Iron Man. Anyway, he's wanting to go set up the Avengers Initiative. And then she's like, no, I'm good, dog. I'm home. I'm going to stay here, right? I'm going to fight the good fight from my nice, comfy house. Because when I was in Bangkok, I was living off the streets for, I'm going to assume, a couple days at least, because of the montage that we were able to get and that very over-the-top melodramatic monologue from her. But there's, okay, God, I got to talk about this as well. There's a whole scene in this nightclub called Insomnia. This is the only time we really get Chun-Li in what could be seen as like her signature outfit, but it's a blue party dress or whatever. I don't know what the term for it would be, but it's good. It's a good looking dress. She's very good looking in it. She's got the buns and whatever. She goes out to the dance floor. She starts kind of dancing and whatever. She starts trying to seduce Katana, who is like one of Bison's like, you know, lieutenants and whatnot. Because like she's apparently a lesbian and apparently somehow Chun-Li knew that, right? It's this very weird scene. And then they get into a fight in the bathroom, and then she has to escape. And when she's trying to escape, she goes into this other room where there's these other strippers. Okay. So I'm thinking she's got to maybe blend in. So she's maybe going to like take off, like, you know, kind of strip down and maybe get into something similar to her outfit, maybe for like a disguise or something. And they're playing this song called Street Fighter. Like they're playing the name of the movie, like a song about the movie in this fight scene. And then she does her like helicopter kick, but it's like upside down. And she's like on her hands and she's spinning around kicking. It looked so awkward. Like I feel like secondhand embarrassment for everyone who's kind of involved in that whole thing. It was so crazy. You know what I mean? It was just like, wow, they made this movie, you know? And like on top of that, it was like, it was like the whole point of the film at the end was Bison wants to get his daughter back, you know? And so that's kind of the wraparound is that like he kidnaps, he finally captures Chun-Li, kills her dad in front of him. This is after she defeats Vega, by the way. All right. Vega's barely in the movie. She's talking. It's just so weird. And then she gets her way out, and then they use like the daughter against Bison. And that's kind of the wraparound is it's just like because what it was is like Bison used Chun-Li in order to get her dad to go and work for him for like 15 years, right? While he kept him basically in a prison, and then she kind of uses like the daughter, taking her as a way to get Bison upset so she can fight Bison and so she can defeat Bison. I will say though, his death was pretty cool. Because like he's on his back, he's all injured. His daughter comes running on out, and he's just kind of like looking at her. And then Chun-Li jumps from like one floor to another, wraps her legs around his neck, and then just twists it around completely, And you're like, and then they show him like with his head completely turned over and just dripping blood out of his mouth. It was awkward, right? And then like here comes Charlie Nash, and they kind of have this back and forth. And like I don't know if there was a plot point in the movie to try to set up Chris Klein and Kristin Kreuk, right? Like Chun-Li and Charlie Nash. It feels like they wanted to do that. It really does feel like, because there's this scene when like he's trying to find out who she is, and then she somehow knows who he is, and then she goes to him before the finale, and she's like, "Look, you want to take down Bison? I'm going to go in, but I need some backup. I need some backup." But she does it in such a way, like the way the camera is on her, it's like it's a close up. I would even go as far as to say it's an extreme close up, right? So you've got like shoulders, chin, mouth, eyes, and then they cut off like the forehead, but you get her eyes are kind of bloodshot. It's kind of weird. But the way that works is like, I need backup, and then I need you to put it in my backup, right? Like something like that is what it felt like. And then like, because him and her, there was smolder. I'm not saying there was good chemistry. There's better chemistry between him and, and Moon Bloodgood. But like there was smolder there that I'm like, are you guys playing this up? Like, are we going for like this weird kind of relationship thing? Is this like laying the groundwork for later on? Like, yeah, he spent half the movie, banging that other girl, but at the end of this, he's going to go over and hook up with her. I don't even know. Like I've said, I have so many questions about this movie. I have so many questions about this movie. And it's not even like I hated it. See, that's the key thing. It's not even like I hated it. Am I going to watch it again? Probably not. Are there better movies to watch that would have a very similar theme and everything else? Absolutely 100%. Am I glad that I watched it? Yeah, after something as it's getting ready to hit like, 17 years, I kind of feel like, yeah, okay. Because I feel like this movie damaged more careers than anything else, right? Like the director did maybe one or two more movies, but like nothing major, right? And then the cinematographer didn't really do anything else after that. Michael Clark Duncan sadly died not too long after that. Chris Klein's career never really took off after that. Kristin Kreuk, she went back to TV. A couple years later, she popped up on the Beauty and the Beast show, and she's been working consistently since then. It feels like the screenwriter, who probably did the least amount of work out of everybody in this particular thing or had the least amount of involvement, went on to go have a good career. And it just goes to show you, like at the time, like I said at the beginning of this, Hollywood was making so much money on home video that they could take these kind of experiments. A Street Fighter film that was coming out 15 years after the release of Street Fighter 2 and 15 years after the release of the movie, the first movie, and it's like, it should have been a hit. But I'll tell you the most ironic part about all of it. So I popped the DVD in, and trailers start playing, which I thought was great. Just kind of took me back to the days of VHS. But I'm watching the trailer. They had Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine, which I thought was really funny. And then the second one was Dragon Ball Evolution. Now, these are all Fox movies, so it makes sense. But think about that for a second, right? X-Men Origins Wolverine is largely seen as like the worst of the Wolverine movies, all of them, anything he's been a part of. I'm not trying to talk about Elektra, okay? We're not talking about Elektra. Not yet. We will one day. But then you've got Dragon Ball Evolution, a movie that is so ridiculously panned and hated by Dragon Ball fans that it almost seems fitting to put it on this particular disc, a movie that is vehemently hated by Street Fighter fans. Sometimes in life, you find something that is so wildly ironic that it just kind of, it seems like it's almost too perfect. You know what I mean? Like this is divine intervention to give you something to laugh at like this. But, to wrap everything on up, man, I am glad I watched it, to be fair. I am. I have so many issues with it, but it also takes me back to a time. The late 2000s were just a different time. There was so much experimenting, so little oversight. It almost felt like when Netflix started just pumping out like one movie a week, and there was very little oversight in development and trying to make the movie good. This movie, I will, again, it had the writer's strike situation, so they couldn't work on the screenplay, not officially. And then when they shot it, that's what they did. And I think that might be one of the reasons why there's so much ADR in the film, is because maybe they were trying to fix lines of dialogue, to make it work a little bit better. I mean, look, I'm probably not even correct on that. I'm probably just trying to project, my, like, what I would have done. But it definitely is a movie that I don't know if I want to say it fills the need it needed to fill, but I don't hate it. I don't love it. I can't even say that I like it, but I was entertained, even if I was scratching my head most of the time. And, it made me, again, appreciate the actors that are in it, because I like those actors. And it just goes to show you that even when you have the best intentions of making something, it can all fall apart if all the cylinders aren't firing together. And this movie is just a prime example of that. So anyway, what are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comment section. I thank you guys for listening to this episode of Podio Commentary. Have yourself a great one. And leave me suggest a movie for me to watch. How about that? I'll talk to you guys later. My name is Matt Jarbo. Have a great day and peace out.